decorating a 3-tier vanilla cake with buttercream roses when the bell above the shop door chimes. And I don't look up immediately because I'm in the middle of a particularly delicate petal and my hands are covered in frosting. So I just call out that I'll be with them in just a moment while I finish this last flower. It's only when I hear the complete and utter silence that follows my greeting, that heavy kind of quiet that feels like the air has been sucked out of the room, that I glance up and find myself staring directly into eyes I spent 5 years trying to forget. Luca Marchetti is standing in my small bakery looking absolutely out of place in his $1,000 suit, and that aura of controlled power that used to make my knees weak and now just makes my chest ache with everything we lost. He's staring at me like he's seen a ghost, which I suppose in a way he has since I disappeared from his life 3 years ago without explanation or forwarding address. And I watch his jaw clench in that particular way that means he's processing something he doesn't want to feel. Sophia. My name comes out rough and low, like he's testing whether I'm real or just some hallucination brought on by stress and too many late nights running his empire. And I force myself to set down the piping bag with hands that have started shaking for reasons I absolutely refuse to examine too closely. Luca, what are you doing here? I keep my voice carefully neutral, even though my heart is trying to pound its way out of my chest. And I'm hyper-aware of every inch of space between us in this tiny shop that suddenly feels far too small to contain both of us and all the history we share. Before he can answer, before I can properly prepare myself for whatever comes next, I hear the sound of small feet running from the back room where I'd left her playing with her coloring books, and my daughter bursts through the doorway with her dark curls bouncing and chocolate smudged on her cheek from the cookie I'd given her earlier. Mama, Mama, look what I drew! It's us in the shop and there's a big rainbow! She's waving her picture enthusiastically, completely oblivious to the tension crackling through the air. And I watch in what feels like slow motion as Luca's eyes track from me to Isabella and then fix on her face with an intensity that makes my blood run cold. I see the exact moment he notices, the precise second when recognition hits him like a physical blow, and his eyes widen fractionally before his expression goes completely blank in that way he has of shutting down all emotion when he's processing something too overwhelming to handle. Isabella has his eyes, that distinctive shade of green that's almost golden in certain light, and she has his nose and the same stubborn set to her jaw that I used to trace with gentle fingers when we were still pretending our marriage could work. But Isabella, sweetheart, why don't you go finish your drawing in the back? Mama needs to help this customer. My voice comes out steadier than I have any right to expect, given that my entire world is currently imploding, and I watch my daughter look curiously at Luca before nodding and skipping back through the doorway with her picture clutched in her small hands. The silence that follows her departure is deafening, filled with everything we're not saying and all the questions hanging heavy between us. And I force myself to meet Luca's eyes, even though what I see there makes me want to run just like I did 3 years ago when staying became impossible. She's 4. It's not a question, just a statement delivered in that deadly quiet tone he uses when he's barely holding on to his control. And I watch his hands flex at his sides like he's restraining himself from reaching across the counter and demanding answers I'm not sure I'm ready to give. Yes, she turned 4 last month. And you were going to tell me when exactly. When she was 18 and ready for college. There's an edge to his voice now, anger bleeding through the shock, and I deserve every bit of his fury because I know what I took from him, know the enormity of keeping his daughter secret for 4 years. I was protecting her, protecting us both from a life I couldn't handle anymore. I wrap my arms around myself defensively, trying to maintain some semblance of composure, when all I want to do is either cry or scream or possibly both. And protecting her from me, you mean from her own father. He takes a step closer to the counter, and I instinctively step back. Not because I'm afraid of him physically, but because I'm terrified of what his proximity does to my resolve and my carefully constructed defenses. From your world, from the violence and the danger and the constant fear that one day someone would use her to get to you. So you just decided to erase me completely, to raise my daughter alone without giving me any choice in the matter. His voice has gone dangerously soft now, that tone that used to precede major decisions and life-altering consequences. And I feel my heart hammering so hard I'm surprised he can't hear it from where he's standing. I left you a letter explaining everything. Left it on your desk the night I disappeared. I never received any letter. Never got any explanation beyond coming home one day to find you gone and all your things cleared out like you'd never existed. He runs a hand through his hair in frustration, messing up the usually perfect style. Do you have any idea what the last 3 years have been like? Wondering if you were alive or dead? If I'd somehow driven you away through negligence or if something worse had happened? The pain in his voice catches me off guard, because this is an emotion I'm not used to seeing from Luca Marchetti, who built his reputation on being ice-cold and utterly ruthless in all his dealings. And I feel something crack in my chest at the realization that my leaving actually hurt him in ways I didn't think he was capable of feeling. And I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to get out before I lost myself completely. And now I find out you were pregnant, that you've been raising our daughter alone while I've been drowning in work trying to forget you existed. He laughs, but there's no humor in it, just bitter recognition of cosmic irony. And I came here to order a cake for my engagement party. Did you know that? I actually came here by complete accident because my assistant is out sick, and I needed to handle this myself. The words hit me like a physical blow. Engagement party. And I feel something twist painfully in my chest that I have absolutely no right to feel, given that I walked away and never looked back. Congratulations. It comes out hollow and false, and we both know it. Don't. He moves around the counter before I can stop him, invading my space in a way that makes my breath catch, and suddenly he's close enough that I can smell his cologne and see the fine lines around his eyes that weren't there 5 years ago. Don't congratulate me on marrying someone I don't love because my family needs the alliance, and I need an heir to solidify my position. That's not my problem anymore, Luca. We're divorced. You're free to marry whoever you want for whatever reason you want. Except I have an heir, don't I? A 4-year-old daughter with my eyes who I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago. His hand comes up like he's going to touch my face, but stops just short, hovering in the air between us. Does she know about me? Does she ask about her father? I told her you were busy, that you had important work that kept you away. I never wanted her to think you didn't want her. When the truth is, you're the one who didn't want me in her life. I wanted you in both our lives more than anything, but I needed you present and engaged and actually there, not just physically existing in the same space while your mind was always somewhere else planning the next deal or handling the next crisis. The words come out sharper than I intended, years of pain and loneliness bleeding through. I couldn't raise a child in that environment, couldn't watch her grow up feeling as invisible as I felt. Something shifts in his expression, understanding dawning, even though it clearly hurts him to acknowledge the truth in my words. I failed you, failed us, and I've been paying for it every day since you left. Luca, I need to meet her properly. Need time with my daughter to try to make up for 4 years of absence. It's not a request, despite being phrased like one. It's a statement of intent from a man who's used to getting what he wants through sheer force of will. And she doesn't know who you are, doesn't understand anything about your world or the danger that comes with being connected to you. Then I'll be careful. I'll take every precaution to make sure she stays safe. But I'm not walking away now that I know she exists. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that steals my breath. And we need to talk about everything, about why you really left and what happened to that letter and how we're going to navigate this situation. You're getting married in what? A few weeks? A month? How exactly do you plan to explain a secret 4-year-old daughter to your fiance? That's my problem to handle, not yours. You lost the right to worry about my personal life when you disappeared without a trace. The words are harsh, but I hear the hurt underneath them, the betrayal he's still processing. Mama, I'm hungry. Can we have lunch now? Isabella's voice calls from the back room, innocent and unaware of how thoroughly she's just destroyed and rebuilt both our lives in the span of 10 minutes. Give me your number. Luca pulls out his phone with hands that aren't quite steady. And I'll call you tonight and we'll figure out when I can see her, when we can start navigating whatever this is going to be. I recite my number mechanically, watching him save it in his contacts with my name spelled exactly the way he used to write it when we were still married and still foolish enough to believe love could conquer the realities of his world. When he looks back up at me, there's something in his expression I can't quite read. Some combination of anger and longing and determination that makes my pulse race. This isn't over, Sophia. Not even close. We have years of conversation to have and a daughter to figure out how to co-parent. I know. And for the record, seeing you again, knowing you're alive and here and still as beautiful as the day I married you, it's both the best and worst thing that's happened to me in 3 years. Then he's gone, the bell chiming again as he exits, and I'm left standing in my small bakery trying to process the fact that Luca Marchetti just walked back into my life, and everything I've built in his absence is about to come crashing down around me whether I'm ready for it or not. Chapter 2. The Past. He ignored that night after Isabella is asleep. I find myself standing in the kitchen with a glass of wine I'm not drinking, staring at my phone and waiting for it to ring because Luca said he'd call, and despite everything, despite all the reasons I should ignore him, I know he'll keep his word, because that's one thing about him that never changed even when everything else did. The memories I've been carefully suppressing for 3 years are flooding back now, unstoppable and overwhelming, and I let myself sink into them because maybe understanding how we got here is the only way to figure out where we go next. I remember our wedding day with painful clarity, how young and hopeful I'd been at 23, believing that marrying Luca Marchetti meant I'd finally have the family and stability I'd always craved after growing up in foster care with no one to call my own. He'd been 28 and already taking over his family's empire, already drowning in responsibilities he never asked for, but accepted with grim determination. And I'd seen the weight on his shoulders even then, but convinced myself that love would be enough to lighten the load. The first year hadn't been terrible, just disappointing in small ways that accumulated into something larger and more painful, like how he'd missed dinner 3 nights out of 5 because meetings ran late, or how he'd come home exhausted and distant and barely able to hold a conversation before falling into bed alone because I'd already given up waiting for him. I'd tried to be understanding, tried to remember that he was building something important, and that his absences weren't personal. But there's only so many times you can eat alone before you start to feel like you're living with a ghost instead of a husband. By the 2nd year, I'd stopped trying to reach him emotionally, stopped asking about his day or sharing stories about mine, because the wall he'd built around himself was too high and too thick for my gentle attempts at connection to penetrate. He'd notice I was upset sometimes, would ask what was wrong with genuine confusion in his voice, like he couldn't understand why I might be lonely in a marriage where I saw my husband less than I saw the mailman. And I'd tell him it was nothing, because explaining would require him to actually listen and care and change, none of which seemed possible when he was already stretched so thin. The fight started in year 3. Explosive arguments about his priorities and my expectations, and whether love should require this much sacrifice from only one person in the relationship. He'd tell me he was doing all of this for us, building security and wealth and power so I'd never want for anything, and I'd scream back that I didn't want things. I wanted him, wanted conversation and presence and the feeling that I mattered more than his next business deal. We'd go to bed angry more often than not, lying on opposite sides of the mattress like strangers, and I'd cry silently while he slept the deep, dreamless sleep of someone whose conscience was clear, because in his mind, providing financially meant he was fulfilling his role as a husband. I found out I was pregnant 3 months before I left him, staring at a positive test in our enormous marble bathroom while he was in Milan, closing some deal he'd said was too important to miss, even though it was our anniversary. The joy I should have felt was overshadowed by terror, because I knew with absolute certainty that bringing a child into our broken marriage would be a disaster, that I couldn't raise a baby who would grow up feeling as invisible and unimportant as I felt, watching their father choose work over them day after day, until they internalized the message that they simply weren't worth his time. I tried one last time to fix things, planned an elaborate dinner and bought a gift and practiced how I'd tell him about the baby in a way that might finally break through his walls and make him see what we were losing. He came home 4 hours late, apologized distractedly while checking his phone, and told me he needed to leave again in an hour for an emergency meeting that couldn't wait, and something inside me just broke completely because I realized he would never change, would never choose us over the empire that owned him more thoroughly than I ever could. The letter I wrote that night was 10 pages of everything I'd been holding inside for years. All the hurt and disappointment and desperate love that had nowhere to go because he was never there to receive it. I told him about the pregnancy, about my fears and hopes, and the impossible choice I was making to leave because staying would destroy all three of us slowly. And I begged him to understand even though I knew he probably wouldn't. Knew he'd see my departure as betrayal rather than self-preservation. I left it on his desk in his home office where he'd find it first thing in the morning, tucked under his laptop where it couldn't possibly be missed. And then I packed what I could carry and walked away from the only home I'd known since aging out of the foster system. The fact that he never mentioned receiving that letter, never called or came after me or acknowledged anything I'd written, just confirmed what I'd always suspected deep down, that I'd never been important enough for him to fight for, never been worth disrupting his carefully ordered life to pursue. My phone rings at exactly 9 o'clock, pulling me out of the past and back into the present where I have to figure out how to navigate this impossible situation. And I answer on the second ring because making him wait feels petty and pointless when we have so much more important things to discuss. Sophia. His voice is rough, like he's been drinking or maybe just thinking too hard about everything that happened today. And I can hear traffic in the background, which means he's probably in his car driving somewhere he shouldn't be going this late at night. You said you'd call. I keep my promises, even when everything else is falling apart. There's a pause, filled with unspoken things. I need to see her tomorrow. Need to meet my daughter properly instead of that shock encounter in your shop. Luca, we need to go slow with this. She doesn't understand who you are or why you're suddenly in her life. Then help me understand how to do this. Tell me what I should say or do to make this easier for her, because I have no idea how to be a father to a 4-year-old I just found out exists. The vulnerability in his admission catches me off guard, because Luca Marchetti doesn't do vulnerable, doesn't admit weakness or uncertainty to anyone. We'll meet you at the park tomorrow afternoon, the one near the bakery, and you can spend some time with her while I'm there to help navigate. And your fiance, does she know about Isabella yet? I can't keep the edge out of my voice even though I have no right to be jealous or hurt about his impending marriage. Vanessa will be informed when I decide the time is right, but my daughter's existence isn't something I'm going to hide or apologize for, regardless of how it affects my engagement. Just like that, you're ready to blow up your carefully planned alliance marriage for a child you met this morning. She's not just a child, she's mine, she's part of me, and yes, I'm absolutely prepared to destroy whatever needs destroying to make sure she's acknowledged and protected. His voice has that steel edge now, the tone that means he's made a decision and nothing will change his mind. I failed you, Sophia. Failed our marriage in ways I'm only now beginning to understand. But I'm not failing Isabella. Not for one more day. The conviction in his words makes my chest tight with emotions I thought I'd buried years ago. Hope and fear, and something dangerously close to the love I used to feel before disappointment killed it slowly. Tomorrow at 3, don't be late. I haven't been late to anything that mattered in 3 years. The implication that I matter, that Isabella matters, hangs heavy between us. And Sophia, we still need to talk about that letter, about what happened to it, and why I never saw 10 pages of you pouring your heart out. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. Maybe we just need to focus on Isabella and figure out how to co-parent without dragging up the past. It matters to me. It matters that you think I ignored your pain deliberately, when the truth is, I never knew how much you were hurting. Because you never looked, never paid enough attention to see me slowly disappearing right in front of you. The silence that follows is heavy with acknowledgement and regret, and when he speaks again, his voice is barely above a whisper. And I'm sorry, for all of it, for every time I chose wrong and made you feel like you weren't the most important thing in my world. Good night, Luca. I end the call before he can say anything else, before his apologies can crack open the protective shell I've built around my heart. And I sit there in my small kitchen in my small apartment that's nothing like the mansion we used to share, wondering if letting him back into our lives is the biggest mistake I could possibly make, or the second chance we both desperately need. Chapter 3. The Child Who Shouldn't Exist. Luca arrives at the park at exactly 2:55 die, which doesn't surprise me because punctuality is one of his defining characteristics when something actually matters to him. And I watch from the bench where Isabella is currently showing me her collection of interesting rocks as he approaches with his hands in his pockets and an expression of barely controlled nervousness that I've never seen on his face before. He's dressed down by his standards, dark jeans and a simple black sweater instead of his usual suits. And I realize he's trying not to intimidate our daughter with the full force of his usual intimidating presence. Isabella, sweetheart. Remember the man from Mama's shop yesterday? He'd like to say hello, if that's okay with you. I keep my voice light and casual, even though my heart is racing, because this moment feels monumentally important in ways I can't fully articulate. Watching my daughter meet her father properly for the first time, while he looks at her like she's simultaneously the most precious and most terrifying thing he's ever encountered. Isabella looks up at Luca with those green eyes they share and tilts her head in that considering way she has when she's deciding whether someone is trustworthy, and after a moment that feels like an eternity, she smiles and holds up the rock she'd been examining. Look, it's shiny. I found it by the swings. Luca crouches down to her level, bringing himself into her space without crowding her, and I watch his hands tremble slightly as he reaches out to examine the rock she's offering with the same serious attention he'd give to a multi-million-dollar contract. Oh, that's a very nice rock. You have good taste in finding the special ones. His voice is gentle in a way I've never heard before, soft and careful, like he's afraid speaking too loudly might shatter this fragile connection. I have lots more. Wanna see? She's already digging in her jacket pockets, pulling out an assortment of stones and leaves and what looks like a candy wrapper she probably thought was interesting. And I watch Luca's expression shift through a dozen emotions as he examines each treasure she presents like it's the most important thing in the world. These are all very impressive. You're clearly an expert at finding beautiful things. Mama says I have an eye for special stuff. She says it's a gift. Isabella beams at him with complete, unselfconscious joy, and I see the exact moment Luca falls completely in love with his daughter, his entire face transforming from cautious hope to absolute devotion in the span of a heartbeat. Your mama is very smart, and she's right. You do have a gift. He glances at me over Isabella's head, and I see everything he's feeling written plainly in his expression. Wonder and regret, and desperate love for this little person he's only just met, but would already die to protect. Can you push me on the swings? Mama gets tired and can't push as high as I want. Isabella grabs his hand without hesitation, already trusting him in that way children do when they sense someone genuinely cares about them. And I watch Luca's fingers close carefully around her small hand like he's holding something infinitely fragile and precious. I'd love to push you on the swings. Lead the way. They walk together toward the playground equipment, and I follow at a distance, giving them space to bond while staying close enough to intervene if needed. And I'm completely unprepared for the way my chest aches watching Luca lift Isabella onto the swing with gentle hands and start pushing her with careful, measured movements. She's laughing and calling for him to go higher, and he's complying while keeping one hand ready to catch her if she slips. And the whole scene is so domestic and perfect that it makes me want to cry for everything we could have had if things had been different. After 20 minutes of swinging and sliding and climbing, Isabella announces she's thirsty, and Luca immediately offers to get her juice from the nearby cafe, asking what her favorite flavor is and memorizing the answer like he's storing away every detail about her for future reference. When he returns with apple juice for her and coffee for me, that's made exactly the way I used to drink it. Our fingers brush during the exchange, and the contact sends electricity up my arm that I absolutely refuse to acknowledge. She's incredible. So bright and happy and completely perfect. He says it quietly, while Isabella is distracted with her juice box, and I can hear the emotion thick in his voice. Thank you for raising her so well, for giving her everything I couldn't. She deserves the world, deserves parents who are present and engaged, and actually there for her important moments. The implied criticism isn't subtle, but he takes it without flinching, accepting the hit like penance he knows he's earned. And I want to be there for all her moments from now on, want to be the father she deserves even though I have no idea what I'm doing. It's not that simple, Luca. You have a life and responsibilities and a fiance who probably won't appreciate finding out her future husband has a secret daughter. Then I'll handle Vanessa. That's not your concern or your problem to solve. He turns to face me fully, and suddenly we're too close. Near enough that I can see the gold flecks in his green eyes and smell his cologne, and remember exactly what it felt like to be held by him. What is your concern is figuring out how we're going to navigate this co-parenting situation, because I'm not disappearing from Isabella's life, now that I know she exists. I never asked you to disappear. I just need you to understand that you can't waltz in and out of her life when it's convenient. Can't be present for a few weeks, and then vanish when your work gets busy again. I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago, Sophia. Losing you taught me lessons I wish I'd learned while I still had the chance to fix things between us. His hand comes up like he wants to touch my face, but stops just short, hovering in the space between us. Mom, I know I don't deserve your trust or your forgiveness, but I'm asking for the chance to prove I've changed, to show Isabella and you that I can be the man you needed me to be. Pretty words don't mean anything if your actions don't match. You said you were doing everything for us back then too, but your version of for us meant I was alone 90% of the time. Then watch me, hold me accountable, call me out every single time I start slipping back into old patterns. His intensity is overwhelming. That focus he used to reserve for business negotiations now directed entirely at me. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to give me the opportunity to earn back what I lost through my own stupidity and negligence. Isabella runs back over before I can respond, throwing herself at Luca's legs with the casual affection of a child who's already decided he's safe and trustworthy. And I watch him scoop her up without hesitation, holding her against his chest like she's the most natural thing in the world to be carrying. And can we come back tomorrow? This is the most fun I've had in forever. Luca looks at me over Isabella's head with a question in his eyes, silently asking permission while simultaneously making it clear he's not walking away regardless of my answer. And I find myself nodding because denying our daughter a relationship with her father would be cruel, even if letting him back into our lives terrifies me. Tomorrow, same time. But you need to tell your fiancé about Isabella before this goes any further. She deserves to know what she's getting into. Consider it handled. His smile is small but genuine. The first real smile I've seen from him since he walked into my bakery yesterday and turned my carefully constructed world upside down. Thank you for this, for letting me start building a relationship with our daughter, even though I don't deserve your generosity. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for her. She deserves to know her father, even if her father was terrible at being a husband. Fair enough. He sets Isabella down gently. I'll see you tomorrow, princess, and maybe you can show me more of your rock collection. As I watch him walk away, I'm struck by the terrifying realization that the walls I built around my heart are already starting to crack. That seeing him with Isabella is awakening feelings I thought I'd successfully killed through sheer force of will and self-preservation. This is dangerous territory we're entering. Co-parenting with a man I once loved desperately, and left because staying was destroying me. And I have no idea if we're heading towards something beautiful, or simply repeating all the same mistakes that broke us the first time. Chapter 4. Her truth. Luca shows up every day for the next week, always punctual and always bringing something small for Isabella like a book or a stuffed animal, or once an elaborate toy castle that made her squeal with delight and made me raise my eyebrows at his complete inability to do anything halfway. I watch them build their relationship piece by piece, Isabella growing more comfortable and affectionate with each visit, while Luca transforms into someone I barely recognize, patient and playful, and completely devoted to making up for lost time, with a daughter who thinks he hung the moon. It's on the 8th day, after Isabella has fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, and Luca carefully carries her to bed without being asked, that everything finally comes to a head between us in a conversation I've been avoiding since the moment he walked back into my life. He returns to the living room where I'm pretending to clean up toys that don't really need cleaning, and I can feel his eyes on me with that intensity that used to make my skin prickle with awareness before everything fell apart. We need to talk about what really happened, about why you left, and what you were so afraid of that running seemed like the only option. His voice is quiet but firm, making it clear this conversation is happening whether I'm ready for it or not. And I force myself to stop fidgeting with the toys and face him properly because he deserves the truth, even if giving it to him feels like opening old wounds I've worked hard to heal. And I told you already, I left because I was drowning in a marriage where I felt invisible and unimportant, where your work always came first, and I was just an afterthought you'd remember to check on when you had spare time. That's part of it, but not all of it. I've been thinking about the timeline and the fact that you were pregnant when you left, and something about that doesn't add up with the woman I knew who always wanted a family. He moves closer but doesn't touch me, maintaining a respectful distance even though I can feel the pull between us like a physical force. You didn't leave just because you were lonely. You left because you were terrified. So tell me what scared you so badly that you'd rather raise our daughter alone than stay. His perception catches me off guard, because I'd convinced myself he never paid enough attention to understand me that deeply, never cared enough to read between the lines of what I was saying, and having him see through my carefully constructed explanations makes me feel exposed and vulnerable in ways I'm not prepared to handle. I was scared of your world, of the violence and danger that surrounds everything you do, even when you pretend it's just legitimate business. The words come out in a rush now that I've started, years of suppressed fear and anxiety pouring out. I'd watch you come home with bruises you wouldn't explain or take calls in the middle of the night that made your expression go cold and hard, and I knew you were involved in things that could get you killed or arrested or worse. You knew what I was when you married me, knew my family's reputation and what running the organization would require. I knew it intellectually, but I didn't understand it emotionally until I was living it, until I realized that loving you meant accepting I could lose you at any moment, to violence or betrayal, or any number of threats you refused to discuss with me. I wrapped my arms around myself defensively, trying to hold together composure that's rapidly unraveling. And then I got pregnant, and suddenly it wasn't just my safety I was gambling with. It was our daughter's, and I couldn't bring a baby into that world knowing she might grow up without a father or worse, become a target herself just by existing. Something shifts in his expression, understanding finally dawning about the depth of fear that drove my decision to leave. And when he speaks, his voice is rough with emotion. He's barely containing. So you left to protect her, chose to raise our daughter alone rather than expose her to the dangers that come with being connected to me. I chose to save her from a life where she'd always be looking over her shoulder, where she'd be leverage someone could use against you, where her existence would make her vulnerable in ways I couldn't bear to imagine. Tears are streaming down my face now, but I don't bother wiping them away. And yes, part of me was running from the loneliness and the pain of loving someone who couldn't prioritize me, but mostly I was running toward the possibility of giving Isabella a normal childhood, where she could just be a kid without bodyguards and security protocols and the constant underlying threat of violence. He closes the distance between us in 2 strides and pulls me into his arms despite my half-hearted attempt to resist, holding me against his chest while I cry out years of accumulated grief and fear and desperate love I never stopped feeling no matter how hard I tried. And I'm so sorry for all of it, for making you feel unsafe and unprotected, when my entire purpose should have been ensuring you never had reason to be afraid. His voice breaks on the words, and I feel wetness on my hair that might be his own tears. You made the only choice you could see to keep Isabella safe, and I hate that I created circumstances where leaving felt necessary. Hate that my world is so dangerous you couldn't trust me to protect you both. It wasn't about not trusting you. It was about not trusting the world you inhabit, the people who'd use a child as a weapon without hesitation if it served their purposes. And you were right to be afraid, because that world is exactly as dangerous as you imagined. But what you didn't understand is that being connected to me actually offers protection, that my enemies know attacking my family would bring down consequences they couldn't survive. His arms tighten around me possessively. If I'd known about Isabella, if I'd had the chance to implement proper security and make it clear she was under my protection, she would have been safer with me than hidden away where I couldn't guard her. Or she would have been a walking target, a vulnerability everyone could see and exploit. Maybe. Or maybe my reputation for ruthlessness would have been enough to make people think twice about touching her. He pulls back enough to cup my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. But that's not even the point. The point is, you shouldn't have had to make that impossible choice alone. Shouldn't have been so desperate to escape that running seemed like the only option. I loved you so much it was destroying me, watching you choose everything else over us day after day until I couldn't remember what it felt like to matter to someone. The confession comes out raw and honest, all my defenses stripped away. And I needed you present and engaged, and actually there, not just providing money and security, but giving me yourself, your time and attention and emotional availability. And you couldn't do that because the organization owned you more completely than I ever could. You're right. I failed you in every way that mattered. Prioritized building an empire over nurturing the one relationship that should have been sacred. His thumbs stroke my cheekbones with devastating tenderness. But I'm different now. These 3 years without you taught me what really matters, showed me that all the power and wealth in the world means nothing if I'm alone with no one to share it with. Pretty words, Luca. But you said similar things during our marriage when I'd confront you about your absences. Promised you'd do better and then nothing would change. Because I didn't understand what I was losing until it was gone. Didn't comprehend that you were serious about leaving until I came home to an empty house, and the sickening realization that you'd actually walked away. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. I've spent 3 years becoming someone worthy of a second chance I don't deserve, building legitimate businesses and extracting myself from the more dangerous aspects of the organization, and I did it all thinking I'd never see you again, but hoping that somehow, somewhere, you'd know I tried to change. And your fiance, where does she fit into this redemption arc you're painting? The jealousy in my voice is unmistakable, and we both know it. And Vanessa is a business arrangement I agreed to, because I thought I'd never have what I really wanted. A marriage of convenience that would satisfy family expectations while keeping my heart safely locked away where it couldn't be hurt again. His expression is painfully honest. But seeing you again, meeting Isabella, it's made me realize I was just going through motions and pretending I could build a life with someone I don't love, when the only woman I've ever wanted is standing right in front of me, still hating me for failing her. I don't hate you. I never hated you even when I probably should have. I just loved you too much to keep destroying myself trying to save something you weren't willing to fight for. Then let me fight for it now. Let me prove I've learned and changed and become the man you needed me to be 5 years ago. Chapter 5. The Perfect Fiancé. Vanessa Castellano makes her entrance into our complicated situation 3 days after my emotional breakdown in Luca's arms, appearing at the bakery during the afternoon rush with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes and designer clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. She's exactly the type of woman I'd expect Luca to be engaged to, polished and sophisticated and completely at ease in the world of wealth and power that I could never quite navigate comfortably. And watching her examine my small shop with thinly veiled condescension makes something defensive rise in my chest. You must be Sophia. Luca has told me so much about you and your charming little business. Her tone suggests there's nothing charming about a small bakery in a middle-class neighborhood, and I force myself to smile professionally, even though every instinct is screaming that this woman is dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with physical threat. And you must be Vanessa. Congratulations on your engagement. Luca mentioned he was getting married. I keep my voice carefully neutral, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing how much the whole situation bothers me, even though we both know she's won the prize I walked away from. Thank you. Though I have to admit finding out about Isabella was quite a shock. Luca and I don't keep secrets from each other, so learning he had a 4-year-old daughter was unexpected to say the least. She moves closer to the counter with predatory grace, studying me like I'm a problem she's trying to figure out how to solve. But children are such blessings, aren't they? And I'm sure we'll all figure out how to make this co-parenting arrangement work smoothly for everyone involved. The way she says co-parenting makes it sound like I'm some inconvenient ex who's trying to interfere in their perfect life together. And I have to bite my tongue to keep from pointing out that Isabella existed long before their engagement and will continue existing long after whatever arrangement they have falls apart. I appreciate your understanding. I know this situation isn't ideal for anyone, but Isabella's well-being is my primary concern. Of course, and I want you to know that I intend to be an excellent stepmother to her. Children need stability and proper guidance, after all. Something about the way she says it makes my skin crawl. Like she's already planning how to insert herself into my daughter's life and push me to the margins. In fact, I was hoping we could arrange for Isabella to spend some time at the estate with Luca and myself. Let her get comfortable with me and see what her life could be like in a more appropriate environment. The implication that my apartment and my life aren't appropriate for my own daughter sends fury shooting through my veins. But before I can formulate a response that isn't just telling her exactly where she can shove her condescending suggestions, the bell above the door chimes and Luca walks in, looking surprised to find his fiancée in my bakery. Vanessa, what are you doing here? I thought you had lunch with your mother today. There's tension in his voice that suggests this visit wasn't planned or approved, and I watch him position himself subtly between us like he's already anticipating conflict. I finished early and thought I'd stop by to meet Sophia properly and discuss arrangements for Isabella. We are going to be family, after all, so it seemed important to establish a relationship. Her smile is perfectly pleasant, but I see calculation in her eyes that makes me deeply uncomfortable. I was just telling Sophia how wonderful it will be to have Isabella spend time at the estate, give her opportunities she might not otherwise have access to. Luca's expression goes carefully blank in that way he has when he's furious, but trying to maintain control, and I watch his jaw clench before he responds with forced calm. Any arrangements involving Isabella will be discussed between Sophia and myself. She's Isabella's mother, and the only person who gets to decide what's appropriate for our daughter. Our daughter. I love how you say that, like you've been involved in raising her for the last 4 years, instead of just finding out about her existence last week. Vanessa's mask slips slightly, revealing something sharp and ugly underneath the polished exterior. I'm simply trying to help integrate this unexpected complication into our lives with minimal disruption. Surely you can appreciate that I'm being remarkably understanding about the whole situation. Isabella isn't a complication to be managed. She's my daughter, and Sophia's daughter, and frankly how you feel about her existence is irrelevant to me. His voice has gone cold now, that tone he uses when he's done being diplomatic, and is about to make decisions that aren't up for negotiation. Well, I think you should leave now. Sophia and I have things to discuss that don't concern you. Vanessa's expression tightens with barely suppressed anger, and I see her hand move to her stomach in what seems like an unconscious protective gesture, before she catches herself and drops it back to her side. Fine. But we're going to need to have a serious conversation about priorities and responsibilities, especially given my own condition, which makes this timing particularly difficult. The words hang in the air like a bomb waiting to explode, and I watch Luca's face go completely blank as he processes what she's implying with that deliberate hand placement and pointed reference to her condition. And what condition would that be, Vanessa? I'm pregnant. About 8 weeks along, which is why I was hoping we could expedite our wedding plans, and why finding out you have a secret child with your ex-wife is so incredibly problematic right now. She delivers the news with calculated precision, watching both of us for reactions. And I know this changes things, but I'm hoping we can all be mature about the situation and figure out arrangements that work for everyone, including your daughter and mine. The silence that follows is suffocating, and I feel like I've been punched in the stomach even though I have absolutely no claim on Luca anymore, and no right to feel betrayed that he's building a life and family with someone else. He's staring at Vanessa with an expression I can't quite read, shock mixed with something else that might be suspicion or confusion. And I realize I need to get out of this conversation before I say something I'll regret. Congratulations on your pregnancy. I'm sure you and Luca have a lot to discuss, so I'll let you both have privacy. My voice sounds hollow and distant, even to my own ears. And I'm already moving toward the back room before either of them can respond, because I absolutely cannot stand here and listen to them plan their future while my chest feels like it's being crushed. Sophia, wait. This isn't what you think. Luca's voice follows me, but I don't stop. Don't turn around. Just keep walking until I'm in my small office with the door closed and my back pressed against it while I try to remember how to breathe properly around the pain constricting my lungs. I hear raised voices from the front of the shop. Luca and Vanessa arguing about something I can't quite make out through the door. And then the bell chimes again, signaling someone's departure, followed by heavy footsteps approaching my office. The knock is gentle, despite what I know is fury on the other side. And when Luca speaks, his voice is carefully controlled. Sophia, please open the door. I need to explain what just happened. You don't owe me explanations about your personal life. We're not together, and what you do with your fiance is none of my business. It absolutely is your business when she's using a pregnancy that I'm not convinced is real to manipulate the situation and make you think I've moved on when the truth is I haven't touched her in months. His words make me pause with my hand on the doorknob, doubt creeping in about Vanessa's convenient timing and the way she'd watched us both so carefully when delivering her news. Why would she lie about being pregnant? What would she possibly gain from that? Control, leverage, insurance that I won't break our engagement now that Isabella's existence gives me reason to reconsider everything. I hear him lean against the door from the other side. I need you to trust me when I say something about this doesn't add up. Her timing is too perfect and she's been acting strange for weeks in ways I couldn't quite pin down until now. Even if she's lying, even if this is all manipulation, you're still engaged to her and planning a wedding and building a life that doesn't include me beyond co-parenting arrangements. A life I don't want, with a woman I don't love, built on foundations that were crumbling before you walked back into my world and showed me what I've been missing. I open the door finally, needing to see his face and determine if he's being honest or just telling me what I want to hear, and find him looking exhausted and frustrated and painfully sincere. What are you saying, Luca? I'm saying that engagement was a mistake made by a man who thought he'd never get a second chance at what really mattered. And finding you again has made me realize I'd rather have nothing than settle for something that isn't real. Chapter 6. Lies Crumbling. 2 weeks after Vanessa's pregnancy announcement. I'm watching Luca play with Isabella in my small living room, while trying not to think about how domestic and perfect they look together. How natural he is with her now, compared to those first nervous encounters at the park. He's been coming over every evening after work, prioritizing our daughter with a consistency that both reassures and terrifies me because I'm starting to believe he's actually changed, starting to let my guard down in ways that could destroy me all over again if I'm wrong about his sincerity. Isabella is showing him her drawing of the three of us. A child's interpretation of family that includes him now without question or hesitation. And I watch his expression soften, in that way it only does when he's looking at our daughter. All the hard edges of the dangerous man he is in the outside world completely dissolved by her innocent affection. This is beautiful, princess. You're getting so good at drawing people. That's you, and that's Mama, and that's me. We're a family now, right? The question is asked with such casual certainty, like she's already decided this is her reality, and is just waiting for adult confirmation. And I see Luca's hand still on the paper as he processes the weight of what she's asking. We're definitely a family. Nothing will ever change that. His voice is thick with emotion as he pulls her into a hug that she returns enthusiastically. And I have to look away because the scene is too much, too perfect, too close to what I used to dream about before disappointment taught me to stop hoping. My phone buzzes with a text, and I glance down to see a message from an unknown number. Just a photo attachment without any context or explanation. I open it more out of curiosity than anything else, and find myself staring at what appears to be medical records with Vanessa's name at the top, except something about the dates doesn't make sense when I compare them to the timeline she gave us 2 weeks ago. Another text comes through immediately after, this time with words attached to the image that make my blood run cold with their implications. I thought you should know what you're dealing with. Those records are from 6 months ago showing negative pregnancy test. But the ones she showed Luca last week claim she's 8 weeks along. Do the math. I look up to find Luca watching me with concern, clearly having noticed my expression change as I read the messages. And I hand him my phone without explanation, because this affects him more directly than it affects me, even though the confirmation of Vanessa's manipulation sends relief flooding through my system. He studies the images with that focused intensity he brings to analyzing important documents, and I watch his expression go from confusion to understanding to cold fury in the span of seconds as he realizes what he's looking at and what it means about the woman he's supposed to marry in 6 weeks. Where did you get these? Someone sent them anonymously. I have no idea who or why, but the medical records look legitimate enough to verify if you want to investigate further. I'll have Marco look into it immediately. If these are real, then Vanessa has been lying about the pregnancy from the beginning. He hands back my phone with hands that aren't quite steady. And I suspected something was off about her timing and the way she's been avoiding any discussion of doctor's appointments or ultrasounds. But I didn't want to accuse her without proof. Why would she fake a pregnancy? What does she gain from this level of deception? Insurance that I won't break the engagement. Leverage to keep me locked into the marriage even after finding out about Isabella. He stands and starts pacing, that restless energy that signals his mind working through problems and potential solutions. She knows that discovering you and our daughter would make me reconsider everything, so she manufactured a crisis that would force my hand and make me feel obligated to follow through with our plans. Isabella looks up from her drawing with the uncanny perceptiveness children sometimes have, sensing the tension in the room even if she doesn't understand the adult complexities causing it. Daddy, are you okay? The casual use of daddy stops him mid-pace, and I watch him crouch down to her level with visible effort to compose himself and not let his fury about Vanessa spill over into this moment with our daughter. I'm fine, princess. Just thinking about some work stuff that's not important right now. He smooths her hair back gently. Why don't you show Mama your drawing while I make a quick phone call? He steps into the hallway with his phone already dialing, and I can hear the low murmur of his voice as he presumably calls Marco to verify the documents and start whatever investigation he deems necessary. Isabella climbs onto the couch beside me with her drawing, chattering about how she wants to add a dog to the picture because families should have dogs, and I try to focus on her words while my mind races with the implications of Vanessa's deception and what it means for everyone involved. When Luca returns 15 minutes later, his expression is grim and controlled in that way that means he's made decisions and is now implementing them regardless of consequences or objections. Marco confirmed the records are legitimate. Vanessa had a pregnancy test 6 months ago that came back negative, and there's no record of any prenatal care or doctor's visits since she announced her supposed condition. So she's been lying this entire time. There is no baby. No baby, no pregnancy, just manipulation and lies designed to trap me in a marriage I no longer want. He sits heavily on the couch beside me, careful not to disturb Isabella, who's now absorbed in adding elaborate details to her family portrait. Tonight, I'm ending the engagement tonight, calling off the wedding and making it clear to both families that I won't be manipulated or controlled through deception. Your family won't be happy about you breaking an alliance marriage, especially over an ex-wife and a daughter they don't even know exists yet. Then they'll be unhappy. I'm done prioritizing business arrangements and family expectations over what actually matters. His hand finds mine on the couch between us, fingers threading through mine with casual intimacy that feels both familiar and terrifying. I should have made this choice 5 years ago when you were begging me to choose us over the organization. Should have walked away from all of it and built something real with you instead of letting duty and obligation destroy the best thing I ever had. pretty words again, Luca. But breaking your engagement doesn't fix what was broken between us, or guarantee we won't just repeat the same patterns that destroyed our marriage the first time. You're right. Words mean nothing without action to back them up. He squeezes my hand gently. Which is why tomorrow I'm announcing Isabella publicly as my daughter and heir, making it clear to everyone in my world that she's under my protection and that anyone who threatens her will face consequences they won't survive. That's going to make her a target, put her exactly in the danger I was trying to protect her from by leaving. Or it will make her safer than she's ever been because everyone will know that touching her means declaring war on me and everything I control. His voice is absolutely certain, that commanding tone that brooks no argument. I understand your fear and I respect that you made the choice you thought was right, but hiding her indefinitely isn't sustainable, and I won't pretend she doesn't exist, just to avoid potential threats. I never asked you to hide her. I just wanted time to figure out how to navigate this situation without putting her at risk. And we've had 2 weeks to figure it out. 2 weeks where I've gotten to know our daughter and fallen completely in love with her. And now I'm ready to claim her publicly and deal with whatever consequences that brings. Isabella interrupts our tense conversation by climbing into Luca's lap with her finished drawing, completely oblivious to the adult complications swirling around her existence. Look, I added a puppy and a cat and a bird. We need lots of pets. He wraps his arms around her automatically, holding her close while meeting my eyes over her head with an expression that's equal parts determination and plea for understanding. Oh, we'll get you all the pets you want, princess. I promise. And watching them together like this, seeing how much he genuinely loves her, and how hard he's trying to be the father she deserves. I feel my remaining defenses crumbling, despite every logical reason I have to guard my heart against getting hurt again. This is dangerous territory, allowing myself to hope that maybe this time things could actually be different. That maybe the man sitting on my couch holding our daughter is actually capable of being what we both need him to be. Chapter 7. Masks Falling. Luca confronts Vanessa that same night. And I only know this because he calls me at midnight from his car, with his voice tight with barely controlled fury, and something that sounds suspiciously like relief, telling me the engagement is officially over, and that she didn't even bother denying the fake pregnancy once presented with the medical evidence Marco had compiled. She'd apparently tried to spin it as a misunderstanding about dates and timing, before finally admitting she'd lied, because she was afraid of losing him to his ex-wife and secret daughter, which would almost be sympathetic if it wasn't completely psychotic and manipulative in ways that make my skin crawl. The real explosion comes 2 days later when Luca calls a family meeting to announce Isabella's existence, and his intention to name her as his heir, effectively upending decades of tradition and carefully laid succession plans that didn't account for a secret 4-year-old appearing from nowhere. I'm not present for this meeting because Luca insists it needs to happen within the family first, before exposing Isabella to the chaos that's sure to follow. But he calls me immediately afterward, sounding exhausted and frustrated, and grimly satisfied in equal measure. My father threatened to disown me. 2 of my uncles walked out in protest, and my cousin Antonio actually suggested I should just pay you off and pretend Isabella doesn't exist to avoid the complications her existence creates. His voice is rough, like he's been yelling for hours, which he probably has given the importance of what he was announcing. But I made it absolutely clear that Isabella is my daughter and my heir, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly, and that I'm done putting the organization's preferences ahead of my own family. Luca, you can't just blow up your entire life and burn bridges with your family for a daughter you've known for 3 weeks. I'm pacing my living room while Isabella sleeps peacefully in her bedroom, completely unaware that her existence is currently causing a war within one of the most powerful crime families in the city. Watch me. I already did it. Already made the choice I should have made 5 years ago when you needed me to choose you over duty and obligation. There's steel in his voice now, that absolute certainty he gets when he's made a decision and considers it final. My father can disown me if he wants. I have enough legitimate businesses and resources to support myself and our daughter without the family's approval or money. And what about the danger? What about the fact that you just painted a target on Isabella's back by announcing she's your heir to people who might see her as an obstacle or a weakness to exploit? Which is why I've already implemented security protocols that would make the president jealous. Hired a full team whose only job is protecting our daughter around the clock. I can hear him moving, probably pacing just like I am. I know you're scared and I understand why, but hiding her forever wasn't sustainable, and at least now everyone knows that touching her means facing consequences they can't survive. You're putting a lot of faith in fear and reputation to keep a 4-year-old safe. I'm putting faith in the fact that I've spent 15 years building a reputation for being absolutely ruthless with people who cross me, and everyone in my world knows I don't make idle threats. His voice softened slightly. I need you to trust me on this. Trust that I can protect both of you, even though I failed to do it before. Before I can respond, there's a knock on my apartment door that makes my heart jump into my throat, because it's almost 1 a.m. and nobody should be visiting at this hour. I move toward the door cautiously while keeping Luca on the phone, and peer through the peephole to find him standing in the hallway looking exhausted and determined, and like he drove straight here from whatever family confrontation just ended. Why are you at my door at 1 a.m? Because I need to see you both, need to make sure you're safe, and that you understand I'm serious about everything I just said. I open the door, and he's inside immediately, pulling me into his arms with a desperation that speaks to how difficult the last few hours must have been, and I let myself lean into him for a moment, because he looks like he needs the contact as much as I suddenly realize I do. Your family is never going to accept this, never going to accept me or Isabella as part of your life. Then I'll build a new family, one that's based on choice and love rather than blood and obligation. He pulls back enough to cup my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. I'm done living my life according to other people's expectations and rules, done sacrificing what matters for the sake of tradition and duty. This is a lot of big declarations and grand gestures, but what happens when the reality sets in and you realize what you've given up? When you start resenting us for costing you your family and your position? I won't. I couldn't. Because you and Isabella are worth more than all of it combined. His thumb traces my cheekbone with devastating tenderness. I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago, the man who let you walk away because he was too proud and stupid to fight for what mattered. Prove it. Show me through actions instead of words that you've actually changed. I will. Every single day for as long as it takes for you to believe me. He leans his forehead against mine in that gesture that's becoming familiar again. And I'm starting by asking for your forgiveness. Not because I deserve it, but because I need you to know that I understand exactly how badly I failed you and how much damage my negligence caused. Luca, let me finish, please. His voice breaks slightly. You tried to save our marriage for years while I was too busy building an empire to notice you were drowning. And when you finally left, I was angry instead of understanding. Blamed you for abandoning me, instead of recognizing that I'd abandoned you first through 1,000 small choices to prioritize everything else over us. The raw honesty in his words cracks something open in my chest that I've been keeping carefully locked away, and I feel tears starting to fall despite my best efforts to maintain composure. And I waited so long for you to see me, to choose me, to make me feel like I mattered more than just another responsibility you had to manage. I know, and I'm so sorry for every time I made you feel invisible or unimportant when you should have been my entire world. He kisses my forehead gently. I can't change the past or undo the damage I caused, but I'm asking for the chance to build something better going forward, to show you that I've learned from my mistakes and become someone worthy of your trust. I'm terrified of letting you back in and having history repeat itself. Terrified of watching Isabella fall in love with you and then lose you to work and obligations and all the things that stole you from me before. Then hold me accountable. Call me out every time I start slipping into old patterns. Make me prove every single day that I'm prioritizing you both over everything else. That's exhausting. Constantly having to police your behavior and remind you what matters. You're right. It shouldn't be your job to keep me on track. He pulls back to meet my eyes directly. Which is why I'm making structural changes. Stepping back from day-to-day operations and delegating to people I trust so I can actually be present for our daughter's childhood instead of missing it because of meetings and emergencies. Your family will never allow that, never accept you reducing your role. My family doesn't get a vote anymore. I'm making decisions based on what I want and need, rather than what's expected or traditional. His smile is small but genuine. I'm choosing us, Sophia, choosing the family we created together over the family I was born into, and I'm not looking back or second-guessing that decision. This is insane. You're blowing up your entire life for a woman who divorced you and a daughter you've known for 3 weeks. Best decision I've ever made. He kisses me softly, carefully, like he's afraid I might pull away. And I'm hoping that eventually, maybe, you'll give me the chance to prove I can be what you and Isabella deserve. One day at a time, prove yourself through consistency and follow-through, instead of grand gestures and pretty speeches. I can do that. I will do that. And standing there in my small apartment with his arms around me and his future uncertain because he chose us over everything else he's ever known, I let myself start to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time things really could be different. Chapter 8. Redemption and One Choice. Luca makes good on every promise over the next 6 weeks, showing up every single day without fail, regardless of what's happening with his business or his family. And I watch him transform from the absent workaholic I divorced into someone who actually knows our daughter's favorite color and her bedtime routine, and the specific way she likes her sandwiches cut into triangles instead of squares. He's patient when I'm skeptical, understanding when I'm scared, and relentless in his determination to prove through actions instead of words that this time is genuinely different from before. His family's reaction has been mixed at best and openly hostile at worst, with his father refusing to speak to him directly and several uncles making it clear they consider Isabella an embarrassment and a liability that should be hidden rather than acknowledged publicly. Luca handles each confrontation with calm finality, making it clear that anyone who disrespects his daughter or her mother will find themselves cut off from him completely. And I watch him burn bridges he spent years building without apparent regret or hesitation. The announcement comes on a Tuesday afternoon when Luca calls a press conference that he's somehow convinced me to attend with Isabella, despite every instinct screaming that exposing our daughter to media scrutiny is dangerous and reckless, and exactly the kind of thing I ran away to avoid. He'd spent hours the night before explaining his reasoning, pointing out that rumors and speculation are more dangerous than truth because they allow people to fill in blanks with whatever narrative serves their purposes. And eventually I'd agreed, because the alternative was letting our daughter exist in shadows and secrets indefinitely. Standing backstage with Isabella holding my hand while Luca addresses reporters about his personal life and introduces the daughter nobody knew existed feels surreal in ways I'm struggling to process, and I can hear the surprise and excitement in the journalists' voices as they process this bombshell revelation from a man known for keeping his private life completely locked down. And I'm announcing today that I have a 4-year-old daughter, Isabella Sofia Marchetti, who I only recently discovered existed due to circumstances I won't be discussing publicly out of respect for her mother's privacy. Luca's voice is clear and firm through the speakers, that commanding tone he uses when making statements he won't be questioned on. Isabella is my daughter and my heir, and she will be afforded all the protection and resources that come with being part of this family. Anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to take it up with me directly. He gestures for us to join him on stage, and Isabella squeezes my hand tighter, suddenly shy in the face of all these strangers and cameras. But Luca scoops her up the moment we reach him and holds her against his chest in a gesture that's both protective and proprietary. This is my daughter, and this is Sophia, her mother and my ex-wife. And I'm asking that you respect their privacy while understanding that they are both permanently part of my life going forward. The questions that follow are a chaotic barrage about our relationship and why I left, and whether we're getting back together. But Luca deflects them all with practiced ease while keeping one arm around Isabella and his other hand resting possessively on my lower back. We pose for exactly 3 photographs before he's ushering us off stage and into the car where his security team has been waiting to extract us the moment the announcement was complete. That was terrifying. I'm shaking slightly from adrenaline and stress. Watching Isabella chatter excitedly about all the cameras and lights like this was just an exciting adventure instead of the moment that changed our lives irrevocably. You were perfect. Both of you were perfect. Luca's hand finds mine in the back seat, threading our fingers together with casual intimacy that's become natural over the last 6 weeks. And now it's done. Now everyone knows she exists and that she's under my protection, which means we can stop hiding and start actually building the life I should have given you 5 years ago. Your family is going to make our lives hell for this. Your father looked ready to murder you during that press conference. My father will come around eventually, or he won't. Either way, it doesn't change my decision or my priorities. He brings my hand to his lips and presses a kiss to my knuckles. You and Isabella are my family now. Everything else is secondary. That night, after Isabella is asleep, Luca and I sit on my small balcony with wine and the comfortable silence that's developed between us over weeks of evening conversations and shared parenting duties. He's been staying later and later each night, finding excuses to linger even after our daughter is in bed, and we've fallen into a routine that feels dangerously close to what I used to dream our marriage could be before reality destroyed those fantasies. I have something I need to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me about your answer. His voice is serious enough to make me nervous, and I set down my wine glass to give him my full attention. That's an ominous opening. I want us to try again. Properly this time. Not rushing into marriage or making promises we're not ready to keep, but actually dating and rebuilding what we lost. He turns to face me fully, taking both my hands in his. I know I don't deserve a second chance, and I know you have every reason to protect yourself from getting hurt again. But I'm asking anyway because these last 6 weeks have shown me what I've been missing, and I don't want to go back to living without you. Luca, we have a daughter together. We can't just casually date when our lives are already completely intertwined. Then we'll uncasually date, we'll take it seriously, and communicate honestly, and actually work on building something sustainable instead of just falling into old patterns. His thumbs stroke across my knuckles. And I love you. I never stopped loving you even when I thought I'd lost you forever. And I want the chance to show you that I can be the partner you needed me to be. I'm scared, terrified actually, of letting you back in and having everything fall apart again when reality sets in and work gets busy and obligations pile up. Then we'll set boundaries and have regular check-ins and make sure we're both getting what we need from this relationship, instead of one person sacrificing everything while the other takes it for granted. He leans closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. I've learned from my mistakes, learned that love requires active maintenance and attention, and I'm ready to do the work this time instead of assuming you'll just always be there no matter how much I neglect you. One condition. If we're going to try this, we're going to therapy together because we need professional help navigating our history and building better communication patterns. Done. I'll find the best therapist in the city, and we'll start sessions immediately. His smile is soft and hopeful. Anything else? You have to promise that the moment you start feeling overwhelmed or pulled in too many directions, you'll tell me instead of just withdrawing and expecting me to understand why you're suddenly absent. I promise. Complete honesty and communication even when it's uncomfortable or difficult. He cups my face gently. Can I kiss you now? Properly. Not just the careful, friendly pecks we've been doing in front of Isabella. Yes. The kiss is everything I remember, and somehow better. Years of longing and pain and desperate love compressed into this moment of reconnection and choice. His hands slide into my hair while mine fist in his shirt, and we kiss like we're trying to make up for 5 years of separation in a single embrace, urgent and tender and full of promise. When we finally break apart, both breathing hard and slightly shocked by the intensity of what just happened, he rests his forehead against mine and laughs softly. I've been wanting to do that since the moment I walked into your bakery and saw you again. I've been wanting you to do that for almost as long, even though I kept telling myself it was a terrible idea. Still think it's terrible? Absolutely. This is probably the worst decision I could make. I kiss him again, softer this time. But I'm making it anyway because I'm tired of being careful and protecting myself from the possibility of happiness. We spend the rest of the evening on that balcony, talking about logistics and expectations and how we're going to navigate this new phase of our relationship. And for the first time in 5 years, I let myself fully hope that maybe we really can build something lasting from the ruins of what we used to have. Three months later, I'm decorating a birthday cake for Isabella's 5th birthday party when Luca comes up behind me and wraps his arms around my waist, pressing a kiss to my neck that makes me shiver, despite the fact that we've been doing this dating thing for months now and I should be used to his casual affection. The backyard looks perfect. Isabella is going to lose her mind over the bounce house. You're spoiling her. That bounce house is bigger than my entire apartment. Our apartment. You've been staying at my place 4 nights a week for the last month. We might as well make it official. His arms tighten around my waist. You move in with me, properly, bring all your stuff, and let's actually live together as a family instead of splitting time between 2 places. That's a big step. I'm ready for big steps, ready to build the life we should have had from the beginning. He turns me in his arms so we're facing each other. I love you, and I love our daughter, and I want us all under one roof where I can see you every morning and every night. What about when we fight? What happens when living together full-time reveals all the incompatibilities we've been glossing over during our careful dating period? Then we'll work through them like adults using the communication skills we've been learning in therapy, and we'll come out stronger on the other side. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. It's work and compromise, and choosing each other every day even when it's hard. But I'm ready to do that work if you are. Before I can answer, Isabella bursts into the kitchen, followed by several of her preschool friends, all shrieking about the bounce house and demanding we come outside immediately. And Luca releases me with a laugh and lets our daughter drag him toward the backyard where chaos is surely waiting. I watch him go. This man who burned down his entire life to rebuild it around us, who shows up every single day and does the work and proves through actions that he's actually changed. And I realize I stopped being scared sometime in the last 3 months without even noticing it happening. Later, after the party is over, and Isabella is asleep in Luca's guest room with frosting still smudged on her cheek, I find him on the terrace overlooking the city lights and slip my arms around him from behind. Ask me again. Ask you what? To move in, to build a life together, to take the big, scary step. He turns in my arms with hope blazing in his expression. Move in with me. Marry me eventually when you're ready. Build a family and a future with me. Yes to moving in, maybe someday to marriage, and definitely to building a future together. His kiss is celebration and promise and relief, all compressed into one perfect moment. And standing there in his arms with our daughter sleeping safe nearby, I finally let myself believe that sometimes love gets a second chance, and sometimes that second chance is even better than the first. Epilogue. 6 months later, the threat comes on a Tuesday, delivered to Luca's office in an envelope with no return address, and a message that makes my blood run cold when he shows it to me that evening, with carefully controlled fury in every line of his body. They know about Isabella, know she's my weakness, and they're threatening to use her to force my hand on some business deal I've been blocking. Who are they? Who would be stupid enough to threaten you after you made it clear what happens to people who touch our family? Competitors from outside the traditional families. People who don't understand or respect the rules we've operated under for decades. He's pacing now, that restless energy that signals he's planning violence. And they think I've gone soft by prioritizing family over business. Think they can exploit my love for you and Isabella as leverage. What are you going to do? What I always do when someone threatens what's mine. I'm going to eliminate the threat completely and make sure everyone understands that loving my family doesn't make me weak. It makes me more dangerous than I've ever been. His expression is cold and deadly, the man I first met lurking beneath the father and partner he's become. And I'm reminded that loving Luca Marchetti means accepting all of him, including the parts that are capable of terrible things in service of protection. And be careful, please. Don't do something that gets you killed or imprisoned when we finally have everything we've been working toward. I'm always careful, and I always come home to you. He pulls me into his arms, holding me tight. But you need to understand something. Now that everyone knows who and what I love most in this world, there will always be people trying to use that against me, and I will always do whatever it takes to keep you both safe. I know, and I'm choosing to trust that you can handle the darkness without letting it consume you. I love you, more than anything, more than this empire or my reputation or my own life. I love you too. Now go handle your threat and come home to us. He leaves with Marco and his security team, and I'm left alone with Isabella and the terrifying knowledge that loving Luca Marchetti means living with the constant awareness that his enemies now know exactly how to hurt him. But watching him with our daughter, seeing the man he's become and the life we're building together, I know I'd make the same choice every time, because what we have is worth the risk and the fear and the constant vigilance required to protect it. He chose us, burned down everything to rebuild his life around our family. And now the whole world knows that Sofia and Isabella Marchetti are the most dangerous weakness and the greatest strength of one of the most powerful men in the city. And I'm betting everything that his love and his ruthlessness combined will be enough to keep us safe from whatever threats come next. The end.